Welcome to a land seen like never before. An aerial adventure over epic landscapes, where amazing people live in spectacular places. Alongside some of the world's most iconic wildlife. It's time to see Africa from above. This is Ghana, a land of sun-baked savannas, ancient kingdoms, and sunken forests. Home to hidden treasures, marine riches, and unique traditions. It's a vibrant, creative place where people see opportunity everywhere. This is Ghana from above. Nestled between Côte d'Ivoire and Togo in the Gulf of Guinea, the Ghana of today was drawn up by imperial Europeans in the 19th century. Disregarding long-standing tribal borders, this aerial journey travels through Ghana's various ethnic territories, following the route of its longest river, the Volta, from the northern border down to the coast. It begins in the scrubland savannas of the far north. It's dry here for 8 months of the year. Desert winds from the Sahara to the north sweep through the landscape. Few plants can survive in such arid conditions. But one icon of Africa has found a way. The baobab tree. Commonly called the tree of life, these towering giants are the largest succulents in the world and perfectly adapted to this environment. Their fat trunks act as a water store, and their silvery bark reflects sunlight, keeping the tree cool. Ghana is home to 6 main ethnic groups, each with their own languages, beliefs, and cultures. The Gurunzi tribe populate the northern savannas, and baobab trees are central to their way of life. Atibeyuro is one of 900,000 Gurunzi people living here. Every year, she and the women of her village head out to harvest baobab fruit, bark, and leaves for making food and medicines. The arid conditions make the annual baobab fruit harvest an important event. These coconut-sized fruits can be stored for up to a year, helping to keep villagers healthy through the driest months. Reaching the highest fruit is a challenge, especially when you've got an audience. But it's worth it in the end. Powerful natural medicines like these helped earn the Gurunzi people their name, which translates as iron cannot penetrate. As well as being a vital source of nutrition, the baobab holds deep spiritual significance for the Gurunzi. Gurunzi women have been harvesting and milling baobab fruits for centuries. Selling them provides an opportunity to earn a living and send their kids to school for the first time. The northern savanna's extraordinary heat makes it hard to live here, but it is good for one thing: baking bricks. Gurunzi houses are built from mud bricks, moulded out of river sediment and then dried in the sun. Once complete, a house is transformed into a work of art. The women of the village cover it in abstract geometric designs. 400 years ago, villages across the region would have painted their buildings like this. But Sirigu is now the only village still practicing the ancient Gurunzi folk art. Each pattern holds a unique symbolic meaning, and designs are carefully thought through to reflect the character and aspirations of specific homeowners. A zigzag triangle shows respect. Stripes signify excitement, while wavy lines represent the road to success. As it travels south, the River Volta curves westward and is fed by tributaries from Ghana's iconic savanna forests. This unique open forest ecosystem once covered much of West Africa. Today, one of the largest remaining fragments can be found in Mole National Park. Mole Park was established in 1958, just a year after Ghana attained independence from the British. Today, it brims with wildlife. One of the forest's most charismatic residents are black and white colobus monkeys. In some parts of Ghana, these monkeys are believed to be the reincarnations of people's ancestors. But here, they're just another primate trying to get by. Competition in the forest is intense. But thanks to incredibly powerful digestive enzymes, colobus monkeys can exist on as little as leaves and lichens. The climate in the Mole forest is less arid than the northern savanna, but only slightly. And the park's animals must rely on just a few watering holes to survive the dry season. This makes them vulnerable, as bushmeat poachers know where to find them. But anyone entering the park with bad intentions first has to get past this man, Oswan Awubakari, one of the chief wildlife rangers in Mole.
Here, there is poaching, but we are in control because we do constant monitoring.
Oswan and his team patrol the park from dawn till dusk, scouring the forest for evidence of poachers and their deadly traps. A single footprint or used shotgun cartridge is often all they need to track an intruder. But with over 4,500 kilometers to patrol, they also rely on motion sensor cameras to help act as eyes and ears around the park.
We use most of our technique on the boundary lines, where you have to check whether there's movement into the park.
With few roads running through the forest, the rangers travel on foot, often venturing deep into the bush. Mole is home to over 90 species of mammal, but dangerous predators aren't something the rangers have to worry about. Nearly all the big game in Mole was shot by the colonial British in the 1930s, trying to control a tsetse fly problem. Fortunately, one member of the Big Five managed to survive here. Mole is home to over 500 elephants, the largest population in the country. These giants used to migrate out of the park in the wet season. But now they stay year-round, enjoying the shelter and water sources the Mole forest has to offer. Despite being endangered, here their numbers are stable.
I see elephant every day, and elephants have never ceased to fascinate me because look at the size, look at its behavior.
Unlike other parts of Africa, elephants here aren't targeted for their ivory, and local beliefs make it taboo to even touch an elephant. But as the communities bordering Mole continue to expand, Oswan keeps a watchful eye on any elephants leaving the park.
We have a common boundary closer to the communities. Their cattle go closer to the boundaries, and if they have any diseases, they transfer it to our animals.
For Oswan, the fight to save the wildlife of Mole is more than just a job, it's a duty.
I have children, but I'm not just protecting wildlife for my children, but I'm doing this because of everybody.
At the southern border of Mole National Park is the bustling town of Larabanga. Nestled at the heart of its narrow, winding streets lies one of the most important religious sites in all of Ghana, the Larabanga Mosque, known to many as the Mecca of West Africa. Dazzling like a jewel in the dusty landscape, this mud brick building has endured for nearly 600 years, albeit with the help of several reconstruction projects. According to legend, it was first built by a Moorish trader who received instructions to build the mosque in a dream and awoke to find the foundations already laid. Today, its custodian is local imam, Alhaji Idrisu Abukari. The original mosque builders at Larabanga had little knowledge of construction. They used wooden timbers for ornamentation rather than structural support. With only mud and reed holding it together, maintaining the mosque was a challenge from the start. Despite its regular need for repair, the Larabanga Mosque has endured flood, drought, and local warfare over the centuries, and it continues to be a source of faith and inspiration to the people of Ghana and Muslims across Africa. When Islam arrived in Ghana, it was accompanied by the Gonja people who migrated here from Mali in the 16th century. Many settled in the northern savanna forests, and some still sustainably harvest the forest's resources, like Albukari Udine. The Gonja have a rich oral history, and ancient knowledge of plants has been passed down through the generations for centuries.
I know the forest through my grandfather, who teach my dad, and I learned from him.
The savanna forest contains over 300 species of medicinal plant. Wild bohemia is a natural antiseptic, while the tamarind tree is used to treat stomach and liver problems. And shea leaves and fruits are used for skin conditions. But medicine isn't the only gift to be found in the forest.
Everybody loves honey.
The Gonja used to collect honey from wild hives, but this involved burning the tree and killing the bees. Now they use beehive boxes.
That's how you can do it without killing the bees.
African honeybees have a reputation as killers due to their tendency to swarm and sting in huge numbers. But other than being more defensive of their hives, they differ little from their European cousins. And as one of the chief pollinators of the forest plants, they are vital to maintaining this ecosystem, as well as the local economy. Honey harvesters like Albacari have installed hives throughout the forest. And over 1,000 kilograms of raw honey comes out of Mole each year. Its unique flavor has earned it a global reputation, and it's now sold as far away as Salt Lake City and San Francisco.
Collected honey is a source of good income to me because it helps to support my educational background.
Continuing its journey south, the River Volta flows into Lake Volta, Ghana's newest landscape. This is the largest man-made lake on Earth, created in the 1960s by the construction of the Akosombo Dam and hydroelectric power plant. Covering an area of 8,500 square kilometers, the lake dominates the east of the country. There are no bridges, so ferries like the Yapi Queen are a vital transport link between communities. Carrying vehicles and cargo of almost any size. The 200-kilometer journey down the lake takes up to 30 hours. But passengers are well looked after. And on the other side, road and water taxis are ready and waiting to transport them onwards. Lake Volta's ferries carry around 3 million passengers every year. The lake waters may look safe, but sailing here comes with an unusual threat from sunken trees. 50 years ago, this part of Ghana was pristine tropical rainforest, full of mahogany and teak. To form the lake, a huge area of this forest was flooded, and the trees still stand on the lake bed. The tallest treetops poke above the surface, but their huge branches lie unseen and pose a threat to fishing boats and ferries. For the 100+ species of fish in the lake, the underwater rainforest is a blessing. The submerged canopy not only protects them from fishermen's nets, the fallen branches also make perfect egg hatcheries. But fish aren't the only ones making use of the sunken trees. A local timber yard has begun to realize the value of this treasure trove of timber. Francis Howell is the chief diver managing this underwater forestry project.
We have two ways of getting the logs from the lake. One is by using the shack harvester.
These floating barges pinpoint tree trunks with sonar and saw them in half with a specially designed cutting head. But deeper trunks often need to be cut down by hand. Francis arms himself with an underwater electric chainsaw and dives down to the lake bed.
Sometimes it's scary due to the depth we go. Sometimes the chain slacks on the tree and you hear the sound, boom, and that scares you.
When the tree reaches the surface, the wood is in even better condition than when it was alive.
It's better to harvest the wood from the lake than the forest because the wood that has been coming out of the lake is harder.
Limited oxygen and a lack of aquatic insects has resulted in Lake Volta's trees partially fossilizing, strengthening the wood. This super strong timber has been earmarked to help rebuild a global landmark. It took around 1,300 trees, mainly oaks, to build Notre Dame in the 12th century. But France no longer has enough of them to repair the cathedral after the tragic fire in 2019. The African hardwoods beneath Lake Volta, however, have a similar strength and density to old oak. And this sunken rainforest has been suggested as the source of timber for rebuilding Notre Dame. West of the lake, a band of rainforest stretches across Ghana's Ashanti region. In the 16th century, these hills were the heart of a powerful empire that reached from Côte d'Ivoire to Togo. Ruled by the Ashanti kings from the ancient capital of Kumasi. The British seized control here in 1902, but the Ashanti people still call the city home and form the largest tribal group in Ghana. Although much has changed in Kumasi since the fall of the empire, one ancient Ashanti tradition still remains: kente weaving. Kente literally means whatever happens to it, it will not tear. The strip weaving method to create it has existed in West Africa since the 11th century. Eric is one of the few remaining master kente weavers.
Kente weaving is more or less geography and mathematics. Sometimes you add some, then you subtract some from it to create your own design.
Both hands and feet are needed to operate the kente loom. And weavers spend years mastering the most complex designs. Even if you're an expert, it takes up to 3 months to produce just one piece.
Before you become a master weaver, you need to pass through a single weave. That's the plain weave. The second hurdle is the double weave. And the next stage is the triple weave, the intricate one. That one are for the master weavers.
It's not just the process that makes kente so special. Each design holds its own symbolic meaning.
Kente has been a part of our culture. So if you're putting on a kente cloth, you need to understand the reason why they bring that the colors. The red is the blood in which our forefathers fought for this nation. Black is also our body. White is victory. Blue means the sky should be the limit of your every endeavor. So all these colors do mean something.
The history and metaphors woven into each design determine whether it's fit for a festival or a funeral, a child or a chief. 400 years on from the Ashanti Kingdom's heyday, demand for its iconic cloth shows no sign of waning. Kumasi city sits on a high plateau surrounded by forest hills and Lake Bozontwe to the south, Ghana's only natural lake. Formed by a meteor strike 1 million years ago, it's an important sacred site to the Ashanti. But when the British came to power, their eye was on the land surrounding it. The ground here is riddled with gold seams. More gold comes out of Ghana than anywhere else on the continent. But the Ashanti Hills are also the source of another billion-dollar product that's been enjoyed in one form or another for over 4 millennia. Cocoa. Farmers like Akua supply cocoa to some of the world's largest chocolate companies.
Ebi also so na wia ne boyi de a aya nenu. E wo se mesesa na me de ko shell na me ko kalije misika.
Cocoa is a sensitive plant that only flourishes in a narrow band of countries 20 degrees north and south of the equator. The Ashanti region's wet tropical climate provides the ideal growing conditions, and the colonial British began farming the newly introduced crop on a massive scale. Cocoa trees take 5 years to mature, but once they're bearing fruit, they'll continue for decades. The fruit pods are harvested just as they start to ripen. The beans are then cut out and left to ferment under banana leaves before being dried in the sun. Cocoa farming is a labor of love. Akua turns the beans constantly to dry them evenly and slowly, crucial for preserving their chocolatey flavor. Beans with imperfections are carefully picked out, but none will go to waste. "400 dried beans make just 1 pound of cocoa. And while the government make billions from the industry, farmers like Akua earn around €3 a day. But it's still worth the effort.
Cocoa Akua afford you won't be brave. Because all your man more will be better me a school, will be better me a jumabia. Just a cocoa sicani de.
As one of few women to own their own cocoa farm, taking her beans to market isn't just about the money. It's a source of pride. The rich resources of the Ashanti region account for 96% of Ghana's exports and have made Kumasi an important trade hub. Flying over the landscape, huge fuel and cargo trucks can be seen constantly rumbling back and forth between the gold mines and cocoa factories. In this part of Ghana, you'll often find an unconventional driver behind the wheel. Meet Jessica Dautu. She's a driver for Ladybird Logistics, the world's first all-female fuel transport company.
The problem is the men siphon the fuel, and some of them, they drive recklessly, whilst we, the ladies, we drive carefully.
Since Ladybird started 4 years ago, its workforce has tripled. While less than 1% of Ghana's transport industry are female, women like Jessica are changing attitudes.
And when we started, the men were like, how can a lady drive this kind of big truck? So they gave us a tough time. But we proved to them that what men can do, women can do it better.
Driving alone on the rural roads, she may encounter potholes, accidents, or armed robbers. But Jessica feels confident enough to handle any situation.
Even in my relationship, I don't allow men to look down upon me, because the mere fact that I drive a truck should tell you, the man, I'm serious.
The story of Ladybird Trucking is empowering Ghanaian women, and more are choosing to get behind the wheel.
I feel happy driving, especially when I get to the villages and towns, when the pedestrians start shouting and waving at me. In fact, I love my job.
From Lake Volta, the River Volta winds its way down to the coast, flowing into the Gulf of Guinea through a wide estuary. The islands of the river estuary are a tropical paradise, home to luxury hotels and celebrity villas. But along with sun loungers and speedboats, you'll also find clamshells around every corner. Truckloads of them. The estuary has one of the largest concentrations of clams in all of Africa, and the local economy revolves around them. Paul Ofwefuete is a clam fisherman. He knows the best hunting grounds.
It's not an easy job. Sometimes someone will go and die. Me and my childhood friends, we have been doing it for a long time, so now we're not afraid of anything.
As clams live beneath the sand, they must be harvested by hand. Diving with an air compressor is the easiest way to reach them.
We use some holes and join it, so it will be giving you air. So you can work as many hours as you want.
Compressor diving is notoriously dangerous. Paul and his colleagues are careful not to dive too deep. Once on the estuary bed, he looks for telltale dimples in the sand.
You can see them making a mark at the ground. So you follow the marks, you'll be picking clams. It's inside the ground, so you have to dig it.
Paul and his crew catch around 130 kilos of clams a day. And it's estimated over 8,000 tons of them come out of the estuary each year. Once the final sack has been hauled aboard, the divers return to the surface, and the boat heads back to the village to sell the day's catch. When the fishing boats return, women are waiting to take the clams off their hands. But only for the right price. Once a sale has been agreed, they're ready to be processed. The most valuable part of the clam is the meat, which, fried, boiled or dried, is the main source of protein here. The shells are used to pave roads or ground up and added to animal feed and concrete. All in all, these tiny mollusks support over 2,000 people in the Volta estuary. And with a turnover of well over €500,000, clam fishing is a treasure trove for this small rural community. But amongst the islands and inlets of the estuary, even greater riches can be found. White gold. This is the Songo Lagoon. Once a wetland, it's now a vast salt mine. The Ada Songo people living here have been extracting salt from the lagoon for nearly 500 years. Doris Awaramadame is one of them. Over the hot summer months, seawater in the lagoon evaporates, leaving behind salt. for the miners to carefully scrape up and pile into gleaming mounds.
Oh, one kakio. Anyana jengu mwami 100 bags kasi.
The salt here is some of the purest on earth, and each year 400,000 tons are extracted by hand.
Yana se wa bi mehunu wa neska, ni wa kechiche me ka chicha. Wa hale pe wa bi nge school pa wu na nge ya. Ko kechoka ngese na mike hawo.
The lucrative potential of the lagoon has drawn the attention of industrial salt companies, and Doris and her community face an uncertain future. But for now, life in the Songor Lagoon continues, the same way it has done for nearly half a millennium. West of the mouth of the Volta, Ghana's coastline stretches uninterrupted for nearly 500 kilometers. European traders first arrived on the coast in the 15th century and named it the Gold Coast after its primary export. Portuguese, Dutch, Danish and the British soon established permanent bases along the coastline, as did local people, drawn by the prospect of trading with the foreigners. Over the centuries, what began as a cluster of European trading posts developed into the city of Accra, Ghana's bustling capital. In the oldest district of Jamestown, 17th century colonial buildings still stand alongside clapboard homes and tin-roofed shacks. Unlike most cities, the beachfront in Accra is not just the reserve of the rich. Some of the city's poorest communities are found by the sea. These neighborhoods have a long history of fishing, but in the district of Bukom, they're making history through something else. Boxing. This tiny community has produced 5 world champion boxers. One man nurturing the aspiring talent in Bukom is boxing coach Lawrence Carl Loco.
When you were born and raised here, you always see people fighting on the street, so people grow up to see that they have to be strong.
4 of the 5 medals Ghana won at the Olympics were for boxing. And stories of local boys from Bukom rising from obscurity to become global stars are an inspiration to sportsmen everywhere, but nowhere more than to the next generation in Bukom.
All the time they have a new kid coming to say that my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father was a boxer. So anytime they show up to become a boxer, we take them on and we start giving them what they need.
Despite odds stacked against them in terms of kit and facilities, time and again Bukom's fighters rise up the ranks to the very top.
They do with the little that they have, and they become tough by doing it.
Most kids are born to poor, unemployed parents, and winning in the ring offers the easiest path to fame and fortune. So they begin training at a very young age.
My son started boxing at the age of 4 years, and he's 14 years now. I have another son also who started boxing at the age of 3 years. So people from Bukom are naturally born fighters.
Whether it's the age they start, the universal fighting culture, or the local world champion role models, it's clear there is something exceptional about this small, unassuming neighborhood. And with Lawrence's help, more kids will hopefully fight their way off the streets and into prosperity. Accra boasts many districts, but at its heart is an area few dare venture into. Agbog Bloshi, the world's largest electrical dump and one of the most toxic places on Earth. This area used to be a wetland, home to breeding birds, and some still return to nest amongst the computers, phones and fridges, nearly 85% of which come from Europe. But one man's junk is another man's treasure, and this digital graveyard is home to a thriving community of urban miners. Old electronics are full of precious elements like gold, silver and cobalt. You just need to know how to find them. These men are known as burner boys and spend 8 hours a day cooking cables and picking the valuable copper out of the ashes. After a hard day's work, they head home with the equivalent of just a couple of euros. But some people in Agbogbloshie are earning a good living, making new products from the electrical wreckage. Meet Zachariah.
And I'm starting bar scraps, and I'm share no embuame, and I'm going to be PO that the same Juma will say me and Kakakra.
Zachariah has established a makeshift aluminium casting factory in the middle of the dump, which supplies thousands of cooking pots for the local community.
A day to me 15 pot, 20.
But it's dangerous work.
They say we need down one ultimate pra. They say send me tell me say now in case we shape a boy.
Zachariah isn't the only one thinking creatively about the waste here. A network of self-taught engineers are transforming old TVs, fridges and car parts into everything from welding machines to cooking stoves. This ingenuity is changing the story of Agbogbloshie, from one of toxic dumping ground to improvised open-air manufacturing hub. A few miles east of Agbogbloshie is the neighborhood of Teshi, home of the Ga people, who migrated here from Nigeria in the 17th century. The Ga have become famous for a particularly unusual tradition. These colourful sculptures aren't for advertising or an open-air art gallery. They're coffins. The Ga believe that your coffin should represent your profession and position in society, to ensure you get the right treatment in the afterlife. A fish for a fisherman, a sports shoe for a football player, or a chili pepper for a vegetable farmer. Colourful displays like these can be spotted from the air all along this stretch of Accra's coast road. One of the most popular coffin designers is master carpenter Eric Bapo Ogote.
A coffin talks about the life of the person. So if I die, because I'm a carpenter, definitely they'll use a saw or a chisel or a hammer.
Eric takes up to a month to complete each coffin and charges around 400 euros, a small fortune to local Ghanaians. But funerals for the Ga tribe are often more extravagant than weddings, with the focus on celebrating the deceased, as well as signalling their social status to the gatekeeper of the afterlife.
Some of the coffins are particular for the chiefs. Lion, eagle, it doesn't matter the amount of money that you have. There's no way you can use that coffin if you are not a chief.
These works of art will all ultimately be buried. But in the meantime, they are a colourful beacon in the grey landscape of eastern Accra. West of Accra, the coastal landscape returns to palm-fringed bays and white sand beaches. Over a quarter of the population live on the coast. And in most communities, like the town of Elmina, life revolves around fishing. The women run the fish market, negotiating prices for anything from anchovies to tuna. While traditionally, it's the men's job to bring in the catch. Like his father and grandfather before him, Francis Annan has been fishing in Elmina his whole life.
My brother about 5 or 6 in Jacob, you school, we were so a pioneer of Sunday. I had a Jubiana, a Frugman or
Their fishing boats are the men's livelihoods, but they're also part of their identity. The paintings and flags a boat bears reflects the character and beliefs of its owner, and are intended to bring him good fortune.
You are against Ubi. Ubi so Nangasa, when you feel it, no pet, no watch. You are today, Chelsea flag, Chelsea or Chelsea.
Francis heads out to sea every day of the week except Tuesday, when it's taboo. A long-standing tradition that gives the fish stocks a chance to recover. Upwelling nutrients from the Gulf of Guinea support a huge diversity of fish here.
Yeah, shrimps, cassava fish, sole.
Local people have been sustainably fishing these waters for millennia. But recently, fish stocks have plummeted. And the reason can be seen on the horizon: illegal foreign trawlers. Their nets are much bigger than the locals and can hold the equivalent of 10 jumbo jets in fish. The ancient fishing culture of Elmina is now threatened by the trawlers' indiscriminate plunder. But Francis and his colleagues are fighting back.
Report on fishes and apple free, or 2 friend before, or 2 oba, or batchwan. You won't never be. Now, was uncle, Sunday, or Prima was saying, apple.
Working together, fishermen across Ghana's coast are helping to turn the tide on illegal fishing, taking back control of their waters, and by continuing to fish sustainably, ensuring their communities have a brighter future. In Elmina, the fight to protect Ghana's fishing trade from foreigners is spurred on by a looming monument of another, more sinister trade. Elmina Castle, one of the oldest slave castles in the world. First built in 1482 as a Portuguese trading depot, it became one of the principal centers for the transatlantic slave trade, shipping out hundreds of thousands of human cargo for more than 2 centuries. Originally, the storerooms were built to house gold and ivory. But as the slave trade intensified, they were converted into dungeons, where 1,000 people were held captive in a space designed for 200. With no water or sanitation, the cramped, filthy conditions led to outbreaks of malaria and yellow fever. But any attempt to escape was punished with death. After 3 months, the captives who survived the appalling conditions were finally taken to the boats, leaving their homeland through this, the door of no return. 30,000 enslaved people a year left this coast forever. But now their descendants are returning. Elmina Castle has become a national museum, and important pilgrimage site for the families of those that passed through its door of no return. Elmina was one of 40 slave forts along Ghana's coastline. These painful relics of the past serve as a reminder of how far the world has come from this tragic chapter in history. This stunning coastline, together with Lake Volta, the rich hills of Ashanti, and the northern forests and savanna, come together to form an extraordinary country, where the creative spirit of the people shines through, seeing opportunity in everything, from sunken trees and seawater to clams and old electricals, celebrating their rich history and iconic wildlife. They continue to fight for a better future in this jewel of West Africa.